A local dad's making it his mission to help children stay safe online. News 13's Lauren Brigman shares his message for other parents to help kids navigate the internet appropriately.
The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the landscape for learning this school year, and many kids are spending more time online. That's one reason the founder of The Third Talk says parents need to be aware of what their kids are viewing online.
He's the founder of what is called The Third Talk. The concept here is that there's something else we all need to sit down and warn our kids about.
As students are heading back to school, both in person and virtually, a North Carolina organization called The Third Talk is teaming up with the North Carolina SBI and Department of Public Instruction to create a series of videos regarding a tough topic.
Experts say 1 in 4 victims of sextortion were younger than 13 when threatened, and 2 in 3 victims were girls threatened before the age of 16. Experts say talking and listening to your child could help stop these crimes from continuing to happen.
John Van Arnam has a degree in psychology and founded The Third Talk to create awareness and give parents tips on how to start the conversation. The pandemic has increased the amount of time children spend online, which has also opened the door to child predators.
It's imperative that you talk to your kids about this over and over and over again.
We are the first generation to live in an entirely porn-saturated world, and it is something that is not fully understood yet. We live in a world where porn can be found literally any way. The saturation of porn in our society is insane.
I got my first iPod Touch when I was 8.5 years old. My parents thought that they were doing everything right. And looking back, I think I severely regret that purchase because at the age of 9, I became fully addicted to pornography.
I was maybe 11 years old when I found porn on our computer at home.
As a child, I watched porn out of curiosity, but as I got older, I watched it to learn what to expect in relationships, especially sexually. I was uneducated, and I thought that through pornography, I could learn how to satisfy my partners and how to make them want to be with me. And unfortunately, that put me in some very dangerous situations.
I was first introduced to porn at the age of 12. I quickly became addicted to it. It was, in many ways, my version of sex ed.
I knew my guy friends were watching it by the time they were like 11, 12. My parents, they didn't talk to my brother because they didn't think they needed to, but they did. His friends show him porn at lunch. It's something he encounters all the time.
My best friend, she was doing online gaming innocently as a kid, and she came across some ads and was curious. And she looked into what these ads were about, and she found herself looking at pornography. She became addicted to pornography. Her parents had never talked to her about sex. She was 12.
I was first exposed to pornography when I was 12 through one of my favorite video games. For the next 7 years, I went through something I would never wish on anyone in their entire life.
I'm not proud of the thoughts that I've had when I've watched pornography and how it's made my view of girls very unhealthy.
As early as 11 years old, my self-esteem began to plummet. I was constantly compared to other girls around me, forced into a competition with standards I could never live up to. The expectations were impossible, and my girlfriends and I found ourselves fighting a battle we could never possibly win. When I hit 14, the rhetoric changed. After almost 4 years of internalizing insults, thinking I would never be enough, and being broken down so violently that I started struggling with severe mental health issues, suddenly I began receiving attention. I got text messages, Snapchats, follows from men who assured me how beautiful I was, and I was faced with a whole new set of expectations. If I wanted to keep my spot in the competition against other women, I needed to be the attractive sexual fantasy that we see every day in magazines, movies, and porn. We are living in an era unlike any we've ever seen before. Access to porn and other types of provocative and degrading media is not just easily accessible, it's being forced down our throats. We are bombarded by sexist and derogatory messages without even realizing it. Porn culture is changing the way we view and treat each other, platonically and sexually. There is no amount of exposure that is healthy for a kid. There is no amount of exposure that is educational or exploratory. I know that there are girls out there experiencing what I went through, and my hope is that women will not have to fight this battle on the front lines any longer. Our young people, myself included, deserve a world free of objectification and sexualization from others and from ourselves.
If you had told me back in 2016 that I would be fighting the fight of my life to save my child and that my world would go upside down because she had become involved with internet sexual predators, I would have said, no way, not me. I talk to my child. I'm a stay-at-home mom. We have these conversations. We live in a nice neighborhood. She goes to nice schools. We go to church on Sunday. As it turns out, it was me and it was my daughter.
My name is Kevin Roughton. I work for the State Bureau of Investigation. I am the special agent in charge of our computer crimes unit. Back in 2020, there was this thing called COVID that happened. In March and April of 2020, we were averaging through 2019, and just to go back historically from that, like in 2018, we received 4,400 cyber tips, and in 2019 we received 4,900. Okay, well that kind of makes sense. Where technology increases, it expands a little bit. There's a few more. What happened in 2020 was unprecedented because it not quite but nearly doubled. Again, it kind of makes sense. I mean, COVID hit, and we took most of the people that were working and we put them virtual, and we took all the kids that were in school and we put them virtual, and so everybody's online, and literally we probably had more people online at the same time than ever before in the history of the world. What we didn't expect is going into 2021 how that would just continue to go up. And by the end of last year, most people were back at work, and really for the most part, most all kids were back in school, most places, but our numbers continue to go up. And if you look at the last couple of months of 2021, you'll see that they were the biggest months out of that. But then really the shocking thing beyond that was coming into 2022, it's like we've just hit overdrive.
This is not the ickiest thing you're ever going to do as a parent either, right? Like, I know that your parents never told you that you had to do this, but my parents never told me that my children had the ability to poop up their back. That was the ickiest thing I ever had to do as a parent. Talking about explicit adult material, online pornography, is the solution. They are the brave ones. They are the ones facing this world. We are not. We need to be their allies. And it is how they connect with each other. It is how they plan to go to the football game. It is how they do everything. And in that phone is all the good of the internet and all the not so good. And we have to understand that there isn't a filter available that can keep your child from the, hey, have you seen this? That doesn't work. Filters aren't going to solve this for us. And I am telling you, that moment of discomfort, that buildup before you're about to say it, and then when you say it, is like jumping into a cold lake. And I have watched people hem and haw and put their toe in the water, and it's cold, and maybe it's not so much fun to swim, and I don't want to do it, and that can go on for years. Even with the knowledge that as soon as you jump into that cold water, within about 3 or 4 seconds, you're going to get used to it and you can swim around. We're talking about jumping into a cold lake for the health of your children. This is a big problem. We have a big problem. This came so fast. In 2004, Visa and MasterCard had put this behind a credit card-backed firewall that was so safe and secure, kids couldn't see it. And in 2005, it became free and ubiquitous on every single social media platform, every phone, every laptop, every Kindle, every PlayStation, every Xbox, wham! And our parents never had this conversation with us, so we were not pre-prepared to have this conversation with our kids. Problem that we have, 75% of parents don't believe that their kids will ever see it. Now in 2016, 94% of boys and 68% of girls viewed this content on purpose before they left high school, and 75% of the parents didn't think they'd ever see it or ever had. That is what we have to get past. This is not a, I have a bad kid or I'm a bad parent. This is all of us. What do we do about that? It can seem daunting, and when I'm talking to parents, pre the coaching that I do with them and their families, they will say to me, this feels like climbing up Mount Everest in flip-flops. It feels like it's an impossible task. It feels like something that there's no way that we could possibly do. And I want you to know that nothing could be further from the truth. Not only is it possible, but it's happening. It's happening. We are having these conversations very, very successfully.
Hello, my name is Dr. Robert Taylor, and I'm the Deputy Superintendent of School and Student Advancement in the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. I want to take a moment to thank the Third Talk and the State Bureau of Investigation Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force for tackling these challenges head on.
The training was amazing, life-changing to say the least. I was a little nervous after taking your course on the way home about the talk that I was going to have with my kids, because I knew after hearing that I was going to have the testimonials and things that the 17, 18, and 19-year-olds had about if they could go back, they wished they had someone that cared about them enough to have that conversation. It was no-brainer. I knew it was going to have to happen. I get home, did it actually at dinner, had to talk with my kids, and it was amazing how they opened up just by me asking the questions. What do you know about this topic? What have you heard about it? Are your friends doing it? Have you ever watched it? And it was just immediate, the outpouring, the response. It's like they were waiting for someone to ask them that question, to talk to them about it. Just had so many questions about it, wanted to know the damaging effects of it, how it could impact them. It was amazing. It was beautiful, actually.
Flat out, just having the ability to realize you need to have a conversation. Third Talk brings that up. And one of the points that you brought up is saying, you take your kid to somebody's house and you say, and by the way, we don't allow our kids to watch porn. I think that is something that we don't think about. And most parents would never even imagine. I had my own family come to the Third Talk, and afterwards we debriefed this. We talked about this. And what I heard from other people as well that attended the event was the fact that there's this moment of we're not addressing an issue that probably has been silent for many, many years. And so that part of the conversation and that discussion, I think, was absolutely phenomenal.
My name is Karen Farrelly, and I am the Executive Director of the North Carolina Center for Safer Schools. We at the Department of Public Instruction fully appreciate and support the joint effort of the Third Talk and the North Carolina Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force.
Hey moms, hey dads, hey parents. My name is John Van Arnam. I'm the founder of the Third Talk. I have been working to protect young people from the exposure of online pornography. I do that by convincing parents to have conversations with their children about online porn. And when I tell parents to have conversations with their young people about online porn, what they tell me for the most part is that if they bring this up with their child, if they bring this up with their young person, they're going to introduce them to the concept of online pornography. We all need our parents to have this conversation. So if you think your children don't watch online pornography, or you think that silence on this topic that is ubiquitous across every single social platform that they're ever going to see, Snapchat, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, you name it, I want you to listen very carefully to these young men and women that are going to tell you their stories from their heart. I cannot do justice to their stories, and I'm not even going to try, but I want you to listen to them, and then please, talk to your children. They'll thank you for it. Thank you.
Talking about this in the long term builds up much stronger relationships and builds connection in families that's much deeper than just this unsaid taboo living in the background. because I've been able to open up to my family about this as much as I have, I feel like we are so much more connected now. And that only happened because of those kinds of conversations, and it's imperative for parents to start doing that.
I wish that there had been someone in my life that I could have just talked about what I just saw, what that meant, what feelings came up, and how intense it was and how powerful it was. And really, when I kind of think about it, it's, yeah, of course, because I was a kid. I wouldn't know any better. I wouldn't know what to do with that information. I wouldn't know how to process that because the things that I was seeing it's not for children.
I wish that somebody would have talked to me about the effects of pornography, and if somebody had just taken the time to talk to me, it would have saved me a lot of heartache and a lot of abuse and a lot of trauma that I should not have had to go through. I think that parents have done an abominable job. They have not taken the time to teach their children out of their own discomfort or maybe out of their own shame. And it doesn't matter what your relationship to your kids has been in the past, you're still their parent. And if you choose not to have this conversation with them, you're choosing to let them have this conversation some other time with someone else who is not their parent, because they will end up in situations that they should not be in if they're not given the proper tools to develop relationships well. And I get it, it's uncomfortable. I would have been incredibly uncomfortable if my father had started talking to me about it. But I was much more uncomfortable when I was sexually assaulted, and I thought that that was okay.
Online pornography is everywhere, parents. You have to talk to your kids about it, please. It's in what they watch, it's what they read. It's just surrounding them on all sides. And if they don't have your guidance, then what are they gonna do? They're just gonna fall into that hole and never get back out of it.
Looking back, the most important thing would have been communication. By far, what was needed, not only after I was introduced to porn, but before, would have been for it to be an open line of communication between me and my parents and other leaders in my community, other father figures.
There have been thousands of documents of research that have gone to show how pornography has been used by human traffickers, by child predators, to groom children into being more open to have sex with them. Just the fact that I know that your kids are going through this, and that if you don't do something, your kids are going to be affected for the rest of their lives. You need to talk to them. You need to open the conversation because they're too filled with shame and guilt and regret to ever come to you about it. Be willing to have those hard conversations, because if you don't, their coaches aren't going to, their teachers aren't going to have those conversations. You have to have those conversations with them.
I want parents to know that it's not just children who live in bad neighborhoods. It's not just kids who have bad parents. Kids can find this anywhere. Kids can find porn anywhere. And we have to tell our kids, we have to teach our kids why this is wrong. This is not what love is. This is not what sex is. And it's our duty, your duty as parents, as teachers, as caregivers, to fight this.
And there's a really easy solution to it. Don't let them do it.
If you don't talk to your kids about pornography, everyone else will. If you don't answer their questions about sex and about puberty and about anatomy and all these things that they're curious about, the internet is going to do it for you. I was fortunate enough to have a mom that did talk to me, that did ask the awkward questions, that had the hard conversations. And as awkward as it was sometimes, it has benefited me so much. And I want other kids to be able to have that experience with their parents.
So this is a problem that affects everyone and something that needs to be talked about, because it's not just something that will affect your children. It's something that is going to affect everyone that your children will encounter for the rest of their lives. Please, talk to your kids for their sakes and for the sakes of many women and men around the world.
If my mom could have explained to me how important it was that I didn't watch porn, then maybe I'd have a different view on women today. I wish that she would have said something to me early on about it. And I wish I would have asked a question to my mom or felt comfortable in asking my mom the question, is it okay to do? It becomes so hard to unsee some of the stuff you see, right? I learned something from porn. And by default, you will because of how much you watch it. So have the conversation if you can as a parent, because your kids, there's a good chance, are watching porn. Whether you want to hear that or not, it has to be said that there's a good chance that they're watching it.